We want to welcome you back to Politics Unplugged. It's a new congressional district with a freshman incumbent, and it is considered one of the state's competitive districts. District 9, what we're talking about here, covering parts of north central Phoenix and reaching into the East Valley, covering Tempe, parts of Chandler, Scottsdale, and Mesa. Kirsten Sinema won the seat in 2012 and is running again. One of the GOP contenders who would like to replace her, Andrew Walter. He is here with me today. Wendy Rogers, I should mention, who is also seeking the GOP nomination. She canceled her appearance because she said that she had a scheduling conflict. Andrew, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So a lot of folks know you from ASU. You were a star quarterback. Why do you want to run for this office?
You know, for me, it really came down to, I think we've reached a unique point in our nation's history, an unprecedented point in our nation's history. Never before has our economy underperformed for this long post-recession. In fact, this is the worst recovery on record. I wish that was hyperbole, but it's fact. Our debt is larger than our entire economy. You know, we have a healthcare system that costs are increasing every single year, millions of canceled policies, all these major dynamic issues that we're faced with. And they happen to be taking place in Washington, and so I feel like we are underrepresented in Washington. I think we have a leadership deficit in D.C.
I know you've been talking a lot about the idea of abolishing the IRS. This is an idea that Ted Cruz has gotten a lot of traction out of. How do you do that, though? How do you even begin to put that idea out there and think that it's a possibility?
Sure. Well, you know, from my perspective, I support flat tax. And so what happens with the flat tax is the IRS becomes increasingly less important. But more than that, we have an agency that has targeted political opponents with whom the administration disagrees. That, to me, calls into question the legitimacy of not only leadership, but the agency itself. That, to me, is maybe one of the biggest 3 scandals of this administration of the last 6 years. That, to me, they wield the power to not only take away your livelihood, your property, but throw you in prison. They have a higher standard that they need to apply to, and as far as I'm concerned, the legitimacy of the IRS is called into question.
Well, you know, they have, it has been shown, though, that they targeted agencies on both sides of the aisle, not just Republicans.
The vast majority. I'd love to see the cases that have to do with left, liberal-leaning organizations, but the vast majority of any of the reporting that I've seen dealt with conservative or right-leaning political causes.
And you have talked about this before. This is no shock to you that this question is coming, but you've had to deal with a foreclosure in your own life, and you said that you really regret that.
Yeah, this is something that actually, Dennis, if you were here today, I talked to him about a year ago. I don't run from my history. I don't run from my past. I own it. And I think that's very important. So moving forward, for anybody running for office or anybody in life, what's most important is that we're accountable for our own decisions. I made a bad one. I had some bad advice, and I took it. But I take full responsibility for any decision that I've ever made. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what's most important. It's not that we make a mistake. It's how we bounce back, what we learn from it. You know, and more than anything, I think it calls into question, you know, judgment. And what do we do after there has been something unfortunate that's happened in our past? We have somebody in office right now. Kirsten Sinema was the only person from the state of Arizona that served on President's healthcare task force. She still stands by Obamacare. There are millions of people across the country. I have a cancellation notice right here from a constituent. They had their insurance canceled, the father of 3 teenage daughters. To me, when we're sending people to Washington, if you don't have the judgment to be able to say, okay, I've made a mistake and now it's time to learn from history and move forward, we've got a real problem. That's who I think we have in office right now.
Let me ask you about the VA scandal, your reaction to the general's resignation, and then going forward, what do you think Congress can and should do?
So the secretary for the VA resigned, great. The system is still in place. Now, the system is a socialist system, and that's not Andrew Walter. That's not my description. That's Paul Krugman's description. Paul Krugman is an economist, self-described for the New York Times. He said that it was a single-payer socialized system. My thing is, so the leadership is now gone. Well, the system is in place. If Americans want to see the future of our health care system under Obamacare, we have to look no further than the VA.
So what do you think needs to happen next?
From my perspective, a great first step would be to allow veterans to have choice. That's a very common sense. Congress could knock this out this afternoon, as a matter
Senator
of fact.
McCain's been talking a lot about that.
He has, and I agree with the framework of what he has put forward. A voucher system, I think that's a great first step.
All right, I just want to ask you about Michael Sam, because you played pro football. This is the first openly gay pro football player. How do you feel about that, and would you be okay playing with someone who's openly gay?
Yeah, well, when I was playing with the Raiders, Kwame Harris, our left tackle, he was not open at the time, but he had subsequently come out of the closet as gay. And looking back, obviously, I have absolutely no reservations. I wish Michael Sam the best. I think he's doing something that's incredibly difficult. It's hard enough to stay in the NFL. In my experience, my history has proven that. I beat the odds and was there longer than the average, but it's a very difficult place, very competitive. And the fact that he's taken on this additional responsibility, I commend him for it. It's not easy, and I would have absolutely no problem.
Do you think the league is ready for that?
I think America generally is probably ready for that. I think the league is. I mean, are 100% of the guys going to be okay with it? Probably not. But where in society is there 100% of people okay with anything that we do? So I think what's most important is at the end of the day, people get on the same page. That's all this campaign is, by the way. You know, it's locking arms with people and marching in the same direction. What are we looking for? Well, a healthy economy. Well, how do we get there? Well, economic freedom. And building a team, whether it's on the football field or in a campaign, absolutely no different. People from all walks of life. That's the beauty of the locker room.
Well, and so out of that, do you support gay marriage?
Well, personally, I support traditional marriage, but what I would say is this is a decision for we the people. The process is incredibly important as far as I'm concerned. So if people in the various states, there's a 9th and 10th Amendment for a reason, and if this is something that people want, then they should be able to decide as opposed to judges or justices. So the process for me is incredibly important. I'm a man of faith. I believe in traditional marriage, but the process is incredibly important.
Andrew, always good to have you on the show. I look forward to setting up some debates with you guys very soon.
I hope
Appreciate
so.
it. And we've got a lot more still ahead on Politics Unplugged, including the latest on the VA scandal.